Hi, I'm David Docherty, president of Brandon University. Fun fact about Clark Hall. Clark Hall is 121 years old. It was finished in 1900. And the graduating class 18 years later, the class of 1918, as a parting gift to give appreciation and thanks for the education they received at then Brandon College, planted these Virginia creepers that we see behind us. They were smaller back then. In fact, they were so small that the graduating class put up a plaque saying, gift from the graduating class of 1918. The creepers were so successful, however, that their plaque is hidden by the 103-year-old Virginia creepers that still adorn the wonderful Clark Hall.
Hello, my name is Jeremy Allen. I'm the Heritage Marketing Coordinator with the City of Brandon, and today we're with Dr. David Docherty, President of Brandon University. How are you doing today, David?
I am very well, thank you.
Awesome.
It's great to have you here.
Yeah, awesome. So I guess let's start. How has BU handled the pandemic? How has the school moved forward with classes over the 2020-2021 school year?
Yeah, I think that certainly there's been a number of challenges, and the first thing I want to say is that faculty and staff have worked incredibly hard to make sure that students have had the opportunities that they can have given the current conditions. As many people know, we had to turn around very, very quickly in March 2020. We started by saying, let's take a reading week while we figure things out, and take a few weeks, and then we're going to be gone for a while. And then, over the summer we developed more protocols, etc. And, this past fall we had a number of labs and music studios that were open to students, and art studios as well. Lots of our fine art students don't have a potter's wheel, for example, and so they need access to that. Music students probably didn't bring their Steinway with them.
Yeah, exactly.
So they needed a place to practice and play, or maybe they do have their instrument, but their living quarters aren't conducive to practicing long hours. Mm-hmm. And then we also had science labs and health studies nursing labs that were running. So even though we were not having any classes per se on campus, we did have a number of students on campus, and we did, in order to, nursing students needed to do their labs in order to be accredited. That was critical. So we had classes of 25 or labs of 25 operating throughout the year. At the same time, we also recognized that there were some students who may not have the resources to learn online. Mm-hmm. They might live in a home that doesn't have internet connection, for example. They may not have their own computer. And so what do we do? So the library worked very hard to make sure there were places for students to study throughout this term who didn't have those kind of resources. And if we couldn't help those students who were the most challenged in terms of facilities support, then what business are we in as a university? And so we're very pleased that we were able to do that. We had term lending of laptops for students if they needed them. And so we were able to function as well as could be under those kinds of circumstances. Obviously other things stopped. No more varsity sports, no more people on campus on larger events, homecoming, convocation, which is my favorite academic day of the year, done virtually and not online, and not in person. So there were many drawbacks, but there were things we learned as well. I was teaching a course last fall on Zoom in Canadian politics, a senior course, and I realized that I know a lot of the professors in political science in Canada, and so why would I talk about, say, foreign affairs when I could bring in an expert? So I took the opportunity to bring in people I know, I've gotten to know over the years. We had Canada's former ambassador to Afghanistan in to meet my class virtually. It was a great session. Wow. We had Paul Thomas from the University of Manitoba come in. I had others from Ontario join us. And so while under normal conditions we could never afford to fly these people in for one class or two classes in our day, they're joining us. And I think we started to learn a few lessons. I'm teaching a course this fall. It'll be in person. But I expect that there'll be times when I say next week we can do this from Zoom, get a Zoom invite, because we're bringing a guest speaker in.
Right.
And so there's no point in all of us sitting in a classroom with a guest speaker and one camera. Why don't we just all do it from our homes, and we can make that work, or from your office or wherever you wish. And so I think we're learning some of those lessons. This fall we plan to have classes of 25 or fewer on campus. We're using the same number we used last year that seemed to work. We're just having more of them. and certainly BU has learned a lot more about COVID as all of us. Who would have thought we'd be sitting here now when we've all had at least one shot and some of us have had two? I mean, it's amazing. And so that opens up possibilities. Vaccination and sanitation are the two ways we're going to defeat this. And we're very optimistic that the fall will look a heck of a lot better. We're seeing this already with the increased vaccination rates. Things are starting to open up. At the same time, it's a plan. If things happen, then we have to be ready to turn on a dime again. I don't anticipate we will have to, but we need to know that we can do that. Mm-hmm. And I must say, for students, I have a daughter who's entering third year university at UBC, and she took last year online from Calgary with her friends. And it was a tough experience for her. I think she can't wait to get back in the classroom to see her friends that she met in first year and stayed in residence with. She needs that social interaction. Mm-hmm. And so I think that, while the mental health of all of us has been impacted by this, the isolation that each of us have gone through to certain degrees takes its toll. I for a while, when everybody was working in the house, there was one day where three of us were in the office together, and it was like a celebration. We all had our masks on, but we saw each other face to face for the first time as a group of three in a few months, and it was, hey, let's have that conversation. So we're looking forward to trying to get back some of that this fall, and I think we'll do a good job of getting there. Again, at the moment, we will always, or not at the moment, we will always follow public health guidelines.
Right.
And so our plan at this moment is social distancing in the classroom. So we've done a great deal of work with the deans and physical plant and faculty members, department chairs, saying what classes can we use and what capacity do they have. If those social distancing limits come down, then we might have a little bit more freedom. But we're telling students and faculty, if you start your course online, you can finish it online. I know some universities are saying, well, we're hoping by Thanksgiving we can move everything back in. And we're treating this as a transition year. So the transition, first of all, is 25. As the fall starts to proceed, we'll see if we're able to increase that. Maybe we can increase it to 50. Hopefully, we can increase it to have all courses back on campus. That would be the ideal. At the same time, I'd say that the other lesson we've learned is that some students like to learn online. I don't think they like to learn everything online. But can we reach more people? So our PENT program, for example, Northern Teachers Program, we couldn't offer it on campus last summer. We're not offering campus this summer. But we did it all online, and guess what? Our enrollment went up because there's more students were able to take it. Mm-hmm. Because typically they have to come down here and stay for a period of time. Many of these students are a little bit older. They have kids. What do they do? How do they balance it? So we're going to continue to do a hybrid of PENT when we're out of this. Some things we want done on campus, but many of the courses they can take online throughout the academic year, not just the summer.
Oh, wow.
Really opens things up. What lessons can we learn coming out of this? Can we be more flexible when, we know now we can be more flexible if you work here and you have childcare duties, you can do your work from home.
Right.
If that makes your life a little bit easier, then let's take advantage of some of the things we've learned from this awful disease.
Right, so kind of taking advantage of some of those hidden blessings that we've been given. Yeah, awesome. So it sounds like BU has done a ton of work to make sure that everybody's safe. Do you plan to have most of the student body in Brandon for the fall?
We're asking students to be prepared to come back. There may be some first-year students who've only registered in large classes, but even our nursing students who we have classes of 45 won't be meeting on campus, have labs here. So we're asking students to prepare to come back to Brandon. We've also worked very closely with the province and the federal government, as all universities have, to make sure that our international students can get here safely and quickly. And what does it look like if you're an international student that hasn't been vaccinated yet? Well, you can come here, you can book your appointment in advance, come here for 2 weeks, self-isolation, get your first shot, get your second shot. So that's great. If you've been vaccinated with one of the vaccinations the vaccines that Health Canada recognizes, you're good to go.
Right.
And then there's the question of, well, what happens if you have one of the vaccines, but not one recognized by Health Canada? And At the moment, what Manitoba is saying is that you can always get revaccinated with one of ours, or you don't have to if you feel safe. But if you do have symptoms, you'd have to self-isolate. If
Right.
you do, and when you arrive, you'd have to self-isolate. So we're working on that as well to make sure that our international students get all that information. So they're doing their planning right now.
Yeah, wow. It sounds like there's tons of things that are in the works that you guys have to think about.
We've got a great team here who do an awful lot of hard work.
Right. Yeah, and that really shows like there's so many people who I mean myself as a student, I definitely feel, safe and comfortable and looked after coming to BU. So that's definitely, you guys are doing some great work. So thank you so much for that. Getting out of the COVID conversation because that's all you hear about now. Why don't you tell us some of the things that you think makes BU unique amongst other universities in Canada?
A few things. First of all, our relatively small class size is huge. The fact that a lot of classes, we have a whole host of classes that have under 20 students in it. Really only our first year classes and nursing, which goes through in certain cohorts of 45 students. Most of our classes are much smaller. That's a huge thing. So students get to know the professors. But there's other smaller universities too. If you think of some of the East Coast universities, one of my sons went to them. There were more out of province Canadian students there than there were residents of Nova Scotia at that
really?
university. Yes, and so, if you look at places like Mount Allison and New Brunswick, St. FX, Dalhousie, Acadia, they tend to have a large concentration of Canadians from Ontario, Quebec, Alberta, etc. Great schools, love them. We serve our region. We serve Western Manitoba. In fact, when Brandon College was transitioning to university, there was a debate whether it should have been called the University of Western Manitoba. But they went with Brandon University. And we stuck to our roots there. We serve this region. The majority of our students come from within an hour or two drive of here, a little bit further. And we accept students who might not have the suite of courses they need to get into, say, university, some programs University of Winnipeg or some programs University of Manitoba. But we accept them because we believe in this region. And so we're very proud of that fact. We're very proud of the fact that there's an awful lot of students who come from small communities who wouldn't go to university if they had to live in Winnipeg.
Right.
I think that's, I know that because I've spoken to many. But they feel comfortable in Brandon. To them, Brandon could still be a big city, depending on where you're from, but they feel comfortable here. It's a self-contained campus. You can walk around, you can meet people. It's very, very different. And so we have lots of students who come here and stay. We also have some students who come here and after a couple of years think, okay, I'd really like to take this other program that, say, University of Manitoba has and BU, because of its size, doesn't have, but I feel comfortable now after being at a university for 2 years and I got my start here. So we're just as proud of them.
Right.
We count them as our graduates too, because they wouldn't have got their start without us. And I think that's unique about, I think that's something that makes BU quite unique. There are a few others like that, if you think about Lowell University in Sault Ste. Marie, Thunder Bay, Thompson Rivers, but we really serve the region. We're a cultural hub. We have world-class musicians come here to play, not just because it happens to be Brandon, Manitoba, which is reason enough, but because we've got a world-class music facility, faculty, and they want to come here and spend some time with them. And so we draw people like that as a result of it. We're a recreation hub with the Healthy Living Center for people to come to. We're a cultural hub, and we contribute to the economy strongly. And I think that those are things that we should all be very, very proud of. There's not many cities in Canada of 50,000 people that have both a college and a university.
Right. I think this is your going on third year?
Starting my third year, yes.
Third year as president.
Yeah.
So have you ever lived in Manitoba area prior to that?
I've never lived in Manitoba.
Wow, and you're from Ontario, correct?
From Ontario, but I was in Alberta for the past 8 years.
Right. So since moving to Manitoba, what are some of the things that you have noticed different compared to other places that you've been?
A few things I would say. I grew up in a smaller community, a town smaller, a city smaller than this, so I'm used to, it's not just been Toronto, Kitchener-Waterloo, and
Right.
Calgary I've lived in. So it's kind of nice to come back to a community that's a little bit smaller. I love the fact that I can go home for lunch and come back
Right.
in a way that I couldn't in Calgary. I think the people are very, very friendly. I think it's also a different role for a university president here than it would be in a larger city, because people know you and they expect to see you. Now, having said that, I'm starting my third year, but I've spent 15 months of that not seeing many people at all.
Right.
So things were going great, meeting new people, getting out, getting to know the community, then boom. And so that's been it's taking a little bit longer to kind of fully appreciate. We love walking our dogs in the Brandon Hills. That's just, it's great. We do like going into Winnipeg. It's just my wife and I now, we have 3 kids that are in different parts of the country. And so it's been a different lifestyle. But I like the sense of community in Brandon. I love the fact that in our little cul-de-sac, everybody knows everybody, and the kids are running around everybody's front yards, even ours. They know our dogs, and we take one of our dogs who's younger over to another neighbor's because they have a young dog and they play. So our 10-year-old dog and our 8-year-old dog get tired out. Well, and it's just bring them over. The gate's open, let the dog in, and off we go. It's kind of fun, actually. It's kind of neat.
Yeah, so you mentioned the word community. So in the grander context of the city of Brandon, what role does Brandon University play in the overall community of our city?
That's interesting because we're in the middle of doing our strategic plan, and that's a big question. And one of the questions I'm talking to people outside of Brandon University is, what role do you see us playing? How can we become more involved? How do we break down some of the barriers? And I don't think we have an ivory tower attitude at all. But I think for some people, universities can be intimidating. I certainly was intimidated when I first went to university.
Right.
And it was a school not much bigger than BU at that time. and it's still intimidating, And I think one of the things we try to do is, for example, we have Mini-U. If we get young students on campus as youths, they're going to be more comfortable coming here. If we can get out into the community as much as possible and engage with people, that helps us. So I think we're a big part of the community. I think it helps define us. I think that there was a while when our basketball team was winning championships in the 90s, that's what people all across the country associated with Brandon. Mm-hmm. And they come here and they realize there's a whole lot more going on. And so I think that those community connections are great. I think that there's always communities within communities. There's the music community within our community.
Right.
There's the Indigenous community. How do we work more closely with them? How do we make people feel comfortable? We mentioned earlier about flying the flags. Well, imagine if you're an Indigenous student from remote and you come here and perhaps you're Métis and you see the Métis flag flying on the campus. Mm-hmm. Hopefully it makes you feel a little bit more at home.
Right.
You see the Treaty 2 flag, it makes you think, hey, and so how do we make sure that communities feel welcome here, and how do we integrate more with the community as part of the discussions we're having for the strategic plan right now?
Is there anything else that you wanted to mention before we conclude for today?
No, I think welcome. It's great that you're doing this project on Clark Hall. It's a great old building.
Right.
You were probably told that it was renovated some 25 years ago, maybe 22, I think. And even though it was renovated, we saved all the wood we could, mm-hmm. and so most of the wood in here is still the original.
Right.
It's a fun building to work in. It's a fun building to walk up. Every day I walk up the steps, I think it's pretty cool to have working here. I've worked in 3 universities full time, and this is the oldest building I've worked in.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Wow.
And it reminds me of you think about the history of the university. You think that Tommy Douglas, Canada's most important Canadian, walked these halls as a student.
Right.
How cool is that? Mm-hmm. That is really kind of neat when you think about the history of this building.
Yeah.
Canada's greatest Canadian was a student here.
Right.
Stanley Knowles, former chancellor, was a student here. There's some really, Henry Chan from CBC, there's some really neat history. Right. Here, and you kind of get that feeling when you're walking in the halls.
Yeah. Cool. Well, thank you so much. It was awesome meeting with you, and yeah, have a great rest of your day.
You too. Thank you very
Perfect.
much, Jeremy. It's a
Of
pleasure.
course.
Okay.